Now, sometimes zombie survival games can be pretty overwhelming. Open worlds, in-depth systems, oh, and those flesh-eating zombies waiting for you around every corner. It's no different in vein, but to give yourself the best chance of survival, there are some essentials you must carry at all times. Let's get into it. Now, I am going to kick off with some proper basics that do not make up the 23 things I'm going to talk about. These are just fundamentals that I'm going to quickly cover, and then we'll hit the actual list. I'm not going to do that thing where I say, ooh, item number 17 is really important, making you watch until then, only to tell you that you should probably not walk around naked. No, so let's cover off the real basic bits that don't require calling out individually now. You'll need clothes, not all clothes being equal of course, but make sure you're dressed for the season and, of course, wear some footwear to avoid any silly injuries. It's always advisable to carry something to drink and something to eat, especially on rarer loot runs where finding food isn't guaranteed. Now, that's the basics covered. Let's get into the main list. For ease, I've sectioned these off into categories so you can skip back and forth at your will using the chapters below. And for context, I typically play on less loot, so bear that in mind. If you're playing with abundant loot, you may not need to fret quite so much, and if you're playing on impossible loot, I'll call out some elements that may be especially useful to you as the video progresses. Let's kick off with our first category, wearables and containers. Armour. There are 3 different types of armour that you can wear: head armour, body armour and leg armour. Now, I did do a video recently that showed that at the time of recording you can absolutely still be infected whilst wearing armour. I didn't test the likeliness though, and armour does reduce the damage you take from zombies, so for me wearing armour is a must, ideally all 3 types. Number 2, gloves. Yes, we covered off clothes, but gloves are a little bit more specific. If you're hot wiring vehicles, you'll need at least some protection, and if you're removing ingots from a furnace, you'll definitely need some. Gloves are a lightweight, easy thing to carry, especially early game when hot wiring vehicles, as they'll stop you taking damage. Now, this is one that isn't talked about enough in my view, but as it's pretty lightweight and doesn't take up much inventory space, a waterproof bag is something you should always keep on you. This means that if it starts to rain, or if you happen to drive your car into a lake, you can put any electronics you have on you inside of it, preventing them from getting wet and breaking. From a small bag to a must-have piece of carry, a backpack. Not all are equal, the military combat pack being the best in terms of capacity, then the golf bag, then the hiking backpack, followed by the gym bag, and then the school backpack. These will make looting easier with their larger capacity and mean that you're able to carry more things on you at any one time without facing encumbrance penalties. And number 5, the last one for this category, is a raincoat. It's another wearable that makes the list of things you should have on you at all times. This prevents your electronics getting wet and broken, but also, crucially, stops your character from getting wet too. On harder runs or in harsher climates, getting wet can cause a lot of problems, such as increased chance of becoming cold, leading to hypothermia, frostbite, and usually death. Now, we've done wearables and containers. Now for the next category, utility items. These are items that can be equipped into your utility slot in your character menu and that offer some form of benefit to you. Let's call out the key ones I think you need to carry at all time. Number 1 is a cell phone. Now, this is a multi-purpose device that is exceptionally useful. It enables you to see your precise location on the map, adds the compass to your heads-up display, shows the accurate in-game time and date, and can also operate as a torch too. It is incredibly versatile and should, provided you can keep it powered reliably, be a stalwart to have on you at all times. Moving on to the second piece of kit in this category. Now, in the summer, perhaps this is slightly less of an issue, but this is still a useful piece of kit to have, and it weighs very little, so I think it should absolutely be something you carry all the time. A thermometer. This enables you to see the accurate outside temperature on your heads-up display, and also shows your body temperature and the effectiveness of your current clothing. In the summer, you can then plan outfits for warmer climates, and in the winter, you'll be able to detect freezing temperatures that may render your drinking water useless as it turns to ice. Now, a torch. Now, yes, I know I said a cell phone at the top of this list that does have a torch, but the cell phone's torch is okay if you're in a pinch, but less so for general looting and nighttime exploring. So a purpose-made torch or flashlight is a must in my eyes. If you can find a waterproof headlight, that is the best in the game at present in terms of its brightness and the fact it won't break in the rain or if you take a dive, but a torch is absolutely essential. Now, on a rare loot run, where batteries are harder to come by, I actually would not recommend a cell phone and would recommend a GPS instead. These have much longer battery lives, and whilst they don't have the torch functionality, nor do they tell you the time, they do give you the compass on the heads-up display and show your exact location on the map too. As I say, on harder loot runs where batteries are harder to find, this is the way I'd go personally, and they become a must-have. Now, I am going to give you a bit of a bonus here at number 5 of this category and number 10 on the list, as I throw 3 things into one. Don't say I never give you anything, eh? But for those properly scarce runs with impossible loot, or perhaps you're playing as a conspiracy theorist who believes that digital technology and radio waves cause the infection, there are some analog options that become must-carries. These are a compass, map, and a clock. The compass gives you the heads-up display so you know which bearing you're facing. The map provides you with the in-game map, but not your precise location. And the clock gives you the clock on the heads-up display, and eats much fewer batteries than the cell phone. If you're playing low loot or preferring analog for roleplay purposes, these options become a must. So that's 10 essentials so far, and that's utilities covered, and a few different options in there. Let's cover off first aid before we get on to tools, and then I'll round off with my absolute non-negotiables that I always carry on my run, regardless of the weather, the time of day, or whether I'm at my base or out and about. First up for first aid is bandages. Obviously, the idea of the apocalypse is to not need any first aid. But hey, we all make mistakes or get overwhelmed. That's why I carry number 23 or number 4 on my non-negotiables list you'll see soon. But in the event that a zombie inflicts a scratch or a broken window does, carrying a bandage on you, which is incredibly light, is a must for me. I usually carry way more than I need, but I'll never leave base without one. Bandages can do a job of stopping bleeding wounds for a short while. They will need changing though, and one thing you absolutely should do when you get a deep wound is suture it using a needle and thread. Again, these things are exceptionally light but absolutely necessary when things go wrong. Always have a needle and thread on your person just in case. The third thing in the first aid category, and number 13 of our list, that you should always carry is some form of disinfectant for wounds. The zombie infection can kill you, of course, but getting a wound infection isn't much fun either. To avoid this, sanitizing a wound prior to suturing or bandaging helps prevent a bacterial infection. It won't stop the zombie infection, but it's a must. If you carry something like whiskey on you, you can give your wound a sip and then take a glug for the pain too. And then the final entry for the must-carry first aid list, and with the changes to first aid having been implemented and with more on the way at the time of writing, painkillers are an important thing to keep around. This will stop your character being in severe pain and will enable you to at least function enough to get the hell away from the situation you've landed yourself in. Again, they barely weigh a thing, so make a lot of sense to have on you at all times. That's first aid just about wrapped up. Let's jump into tools. Now, this category is a bit of a complicated one, or at least can appear to be complicated initially, but given that a lot of your time can be spent dismantling things in vain, if you are on the dismantle path, then there are a selection of tools I'd advise carrying. Of course, if you aren't dismantling things or don't need tools, then some of these you may not need, but number 18 is definitely one I'd recommend carrying regardless of your dismantling intentions. First and foremost, one of the most common things you need to dismantle things is a hammer. Now, a standard claw hammer isn't too weighty and will do the task for most things, but if you want to cover all hammer bases, you're likely to need a heavy hammer like a sledgehammer, or, my preferred option, a mini sledge. It gives you the same ability to dismantle as a sledgehammer for less weight, and if you're a loot goblin like me, I want more capacity for really important things rather than more weighty tools. Next up is a screwdriver, a useful tool again for dismantling, but is also used for taking things like car batteries out of cars. I do tend to opt for a driver here, with a choice from electric through to hydraulic, but the better they are, they tend to get even heavier. I tend to leave a powered driver in the car, whilst I carry a screwdriver on my person. Now, the next tool that I'll talk about here is pliers. Now, there's basic and heavy pliers, but for the sakes of 0.3 pounds of weight, I opt for the locking pliers every single time. They also double up for can opening too, so if you really can't wait to get home for that tasty looking tin of dog food, you can now chow down straight away. The penultimate tool that I always try and carry on me, especially in the early days when I'm going from house to house, or on harder loot runs when I need to think about logs for fires, is a crosscut saw. This is the lightest saw in the game at 1.3 pounds, less than half the weight of the hacksaw, and if you use it to smack a tree up, you can fell it and get some logs. It also fulfills the duties for heavy cutting in terms of dismantling or corpse disposal too, so it's one that I'll always carry. And last for this category is an underrated piece of kit that just about squeezes itself into my tool category, and it is the last tool entry into the category. It's scissors. These are, again, pretty light additions, but are incredibly useful for cutting up zombie clothes, playing the parcel game, where you see what random goodness you can get when you open a parcel, and for any other basic cutting needs. They're also handy to pick up, as they're a key ingredient for crafting lockpicks if you can find the schematic. So we've covered a huge amount so far: wearables, containers, utility items, first aid and tools. And just before I jump into the final category, my non-negotiable must-carry items, I have one tiny ask for you. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below with your favourite tips so far, or anything you carry that I've missed. Liking and subscribing really does help me out and shows me which videos I need to do more of in the future. Thank you. So, my non-negotiables, my padlocked items in my inventory, the things I always have on me, and often the things I prioritise in my looting when I jump into a new game. Here's 4 things you'll never see me without, and the second to last one is one I don't see many people actually talking about. Now, number 1 is a melee weapon that I know. Yes, not just a melee weapon. I mean, it is a zombie survival game after all. We all need to crack zombie skulls, but a melee weapon that I know. It's really important in terms of timing for power hits and in terms of range for the swing too. My personal favourite for daily use are spiked baseball bats, but it's important to have a melee weapon that you can depend on. You know how many hits it's going to take to kill, and then you'll be safer in the apocalypse if you suddenly see 3 running at you and you know whether the weapon you've got is cut out for that fight. Play with different weapons, find your favourites, and if you're looking for inspiration, I did a totally non-controversial or agreeable tier list for a good chunk of the melee weapons in the game, which you can watch at the top right. Now, number 2 on my non-negotiables and number 21 for our overall list, lockpicks. Especially early game when the lockpicking skill isn't particularly strong or good, I always carry as many as I can find. This ensures that when I'm looting, I can make the most of my looting runs, and I'm not blocked out by many containers at least, having to accept that level 75 takes some time to get to, but lockpicking is critical on rarer loot runs too, to find some better stuff. Do not go out without your lockpicks. Always have them on you. Lock them to you. Next up, and one I often see forgotten about, is matches or a lighter. Now, this one I accept on more abundant loot runs maybe isn't as crucial, but on the rarer loot runs, these are absolutely needed. And to be fair, even on an abundant loot run in the winter, or when you're desperate to cook some food but the power's out, you will need either matches or a lighter. These mean that you can light fires to cook or keep warm, and are also useful when the power's out so that you can light candles in houses you're basing or staying in so that you can see at night. You can also just activate the matches and leave them scattered around for light. They're as light as anything, and always make sure you've got matches or a lighter on your person. And the final item for this category, and number 23 of the list of 23 things you should carry on your all times in vain, is what I'm going to call an emergency gun. Going loud, especially on higher zombie population runs with sprinters, is rarely a good idea in my experience, as if you've got high pop and sprinters enabled, things can go south pretty quick. But sometimes if you're playing permadeath, or if you don't want to lose that loot that you've just picked up within the last 20 minutes or so, you have to just shoot your way out of a situation. If you're in a house and a horde comes running at your door and your choice is shoot or die, you'd like to have the option to shoot. So an emergency gun becomes an essential insurance plan. If you can find a suppressor, it becomes less emergency gun and more just gun, because you can use it more often. But I wouldn't go on a looting run or be walking around my base without one holstered. There you go, 23 things you should always carry when playing Vane. What have I missed? Let me know down in the comments, and also let me know what your non-negotiable always carry items are. Please do like the video and subscribe. As I say, it really does help me out, and you'll see me on Monday for my Let's Play, and on Wednesday for another skull-cracking apocalyptic video. I'll catch you later.